Hi everyone, thanks for joining my talk today, and I hope you're enjoying the Next.js Conf. I'd like to talk today about how Next.js scales to millions of pages with incremental static regeneration. But before we dive into the talk, let me very quickly introduce about myself. My name is Arisa Fukuzaki. I'm a developer relations engineer at Storyblok. Besides from my work, I'm an ambassador of Girl Code, as well as doing some podcasts on my own to interview some of the interesting developers. Also, I'm an organizer of a Japanese tech community. If you have any questions related with Storyblok or Headless CMS in general, you can text me anytime. My Twitter's DM is open. My username at Twitter is arisa_dev. For today's talk, we have a special guest from Education First. Telmo is a solution architect at Education First. Education First provides language trainings all over the world. Also, Telmo has the experience of architecting and implementing Headless CMS as well as the e-commerce solutions to the enterprise scale of the projects as well as small businesses. We would like to invite Telmo for this talk right now.
Hey, Arisa, how are you?
Hello, Telmo. I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing really, really good. I'm happy to be here and share a little bit of our story with this great crowd.
Thank you for being here too. So I have a couple of questions would like to ask you about. So first question would be, what was the challenges that you were facing?
Absolutely, all of them. So if we go back in time 4 years, and what actually is a 7-year story, but at this time, we were heavily invested in a very solid enterprise CMS, and functionality-wise, we thought that we had a very good fit for the company. Yet somehow, and with years of usage, we still felt slow on deliveries. Every time we looked closer as to why, we always saw that this was true for most roles that interacted with the system, and moving away from it felt like pushing an iceberg across the globe. So we spoke with other product teams just to make sure that it was not just a problem on an island, and we saw the same reflections. Editors, backend, front-end developers, and of course, even stakeholders all shared different levels of the same steep learning curve. Documentation was insufficient, and certifying the personnel only covered a little bit of the essentials. So at this point, it was also very hard to get truly specialized knowledge. Even hiring certified contractors meant looking through a very reduced pool of professionals, and much in the same manner, editing content, creating new back-end code, and working on the front end was extremely slow. So we had challenges across the board, but at the root, delivery speed was the main problem to solve first. And unfortunately, the CMS was often in the way. It was quoted by teams time and time again as the reason as to why something was not executed on time. So if we pile all of that, and at the time, another heavy ambition of ours, and one of our current focuses still, was to be great at content personalization. And we knew back then that we needed to be particularly limp to experiment and to tackle that one specifically. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, of course. That was really nice stories that you shared with us. And based on what you told about us, I would like to ask you more about why you chose the headless approach and why you chose the framework to go with Next.js.
Absolutely. We were not blind to the market shifting towards headless. So there is that. And that in itself gave it authority as a movement because it was new ground territory and most of the products were still in their infancy. Still, we understood having the flexibility of accessing an API to reach structured content and use it across mediums. It was very appealing to us, and this would give us maybe a new breath in tackling different projects. This is what we felt then. This is what we see today. So when we first looked at it as an option, we realized very soon that this would give us the ability to use it as a traditional CMS, meaning we would structure and model data around routes, and then we get a website or get a web app. But also, now we can do content repositories when it fits the product, when it fits the purpose. We can do content repositories, and the schema then is not built around having a single medium as an output. It could even be across teams and across products. And this is very enticing, very interesting aspect of the headless CMS, is that you can just model your content once and use it in a different amount of mediums and devices. Much in the same manner, even internally, we can then graph these content repositories and create new ones specialized to specific market meta. We've done more and more of this type of work, and it's really worked beautifully for us. And having a programmatic API that can hook up to and handle the component schema and content migrations has been a bliss for automation. And it's one of the things we were aiming at. We really struggled either with serializing data between environments, or in some cases, genuinely cloning it because the systems did not allow us to do this. Headless, of course, and more aligned, I guess, with the next topic. Headless allows us to choose the templating framework for the individual team, project, or overall company. And I have to say, on my team, we're very much on the next boat, and we're very, very happy with the output with using this framework. And it synergizes a lot with our current user pool in React. So a lot of our developers love React, and to be able to execute their work in that framework is great for them. And to do it in Next with a product that just builds upon React and has the output quality from the Next team, it was just bliss. So we can spin up projects much faster. And then the Headless approach for us as a topic, it doesn't really gather too much responsibility. So one thing we were seeing with the systems we were evaluating is more and more they were gathering responsibility that arguably could or could not be in the CMS, such as analytics, A/B testing, personalization, making it simpler and faster to develop if you don't have to think about those. If you don't have to think about those to make a component, to make the front end, to deliver a piece of code. Of course, you can then use best of class tooling for those purposes and achieve a better output. And this was something that we were strongly believing in. And this is something that we still pursue today. So I would add, finally, that in spite of the headless aspect of having a UI, or in spite of the headless aspect, having a UI to preview and edit content was definitely a selling point for us, making it a solution that is easier to be accepted across different minded professionals. So for context, our larger product sites has about 211 registered editors over about 60 markets with different backgrounds, roles within sales, marketing, and technology. And it makes it a lot easier to present a UI to sales and marketing, for instance, but also to developers in order to execute a specific task.
I understand what you share the stories with us, because to distribute with such huge scale of the project, with such a huge numbers of 211 of the content editors, would be very difficult to control all. And based on that, I would like to ask you one more question. What was the progress and learnings you had since you started to use Storyblok as a headless approach for over a year?
Well, I have to say we're very happy with the results so far. So as you know, we've successfully recently, about a year ago, ported our larger product websites to be static rendered. And in this project that we saved for a later stage, because a number of requirements, both with the business, but also features pending in the CMS, needed to be met. So we started with a lot of confidence after we met those requirements. And then even having multiple projects that use server-side rendering to provide editors with a real-time preview, but with the changes that they've done in spite of being static rendered, that is definitely something that we're very, very happy with. if we can enrich, I mean, we recently delivered a piece around personalization that uses Storyblok, and it allows us to deliver enhancements in real time to websites based on customer actions and attributes. And again, this is happening in real time in spite of having an inherent static nature. So we can enrich as we need, which is absolutely great. And another pinpoint for us recently was that we've developed a product information management system around Storyblok, and we put an API facade in front of it. And we have a front end for Next. So we have a much richer, much more custom experience for our content editors to create content around our products that then can be distributed centrally to multiple platforms. And we see the teams finally having time to properly focus on front-end development, on product development, on back-end development, and improve their development experience. About, I guess, learnings. What did we learn? We learned to use fewer monoliths, to advocate for best-in-class platforms and mix them for the best possible results. This has been key in getting the agility that we have today. To integrate more, definitely to integrate with everything, really. There's been a heavy push on and focus on content APIs, but also in APIs in general. This has made it a lot easier to breach silos and to retrieve content within different products, different teams. And we're using it more and more as we go. We have been automating everything we can get our hands of. We also have an internal push for infrastructure as code that enabled us a lot for this specific purpose. And we really learned to optimize and caching API calls. So during static build processes, we can turn hours into minutes just by doing the right optimizations at build time. And for the volume of markets and pages that we output, that has been really key. It's been night and day since we've done that iteration. And so much more, but it's easy to think about examples, but difficult to condense. So if there's an interest, feel free to ping us for details.
Yes, of course. And it's really impressive that you minimize the build time from hours to such the short minutes. And that was really helpful solutions for other use cases to hear as well. And I really would like to say thank you for sharing your stories. And I'm really hoping to hear more learnings and the progress that you will have. So thank you for talking with us today, Telmo, and I wish you a good day.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for the great product, actually. Both Next and Storyblok changed the way we work today, and we're very happy for that.
Thank you so much. So happy to hear that. Okay, so see you soon.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
As we heard the stories from Telmo, there could be some of the challenges that you might also face in your projects. One of the challenges would be, for example, if you have many editors in your team with enterprise scales or bigger scales of the projects, how you're going to handle all the changes at the same time in different markets. This could be a very serious problem. As one of the solutions we already know from such as PHP or monolithic world is server-side rendering. Server-side rendering will load the content at each request. So you will have the most updated version of the pages at any reloads. However, this could cause the issue of performance. There also would be the issue of the caching. You need to deal with these two problems if you're going to choose the server-side rendering. Another approach that we already have known is that static site generation. If you're already familiar with Jamstack, you may already have heard about SSG, or you even have some of the experience. Static site generation is loading the content at each build time. It means that unless you make the next build, the content will stay the same. Also, if you have a lot of pages to generate, the time of the build time is going to be longer. It could be from minutes to hours. And you're going to be blocked for these long build time. What if we have an approach, such as a solution with a hybrid features from server-side rendering and static-side generation? And there is already a solution which is provided by Next.js. It's called incremental static regeneration. So for incremental static regeneration, in this diagram, you can see that you are able to choose the amount of the pages that you want to generate at build times. So instead of waiting for 2 hours to build over 100,000 of the products in your e-commerce project, your build time is now from 1 to 8 minutes. In more details of overview about incremental static regeneration, here in this diagram, you see that how it works in more details. Let's say we have 2 users. There is a user A and user B. User A visits the page right now. So user A will see the page which is generated previously. At the same time, while this user A visits the page, it triggers to generate the other newer version of the page, so that the user B who visits the page few seconds later will see the most updated version of the page. And that's how it works with incremental static regeneration. Now we took a look together how incremental static regeneration works in a logic. But we want to see how it works in an action. So let's dive into our demo. Here in the screen, you are seeing the visual editor from Storyblok, as Education First chose to use for their Headless CMS approach. On the left-hand side, you are seeing the real-time visual editor. What I mean by that to say the real-time visual editor is that you will see the changes instantly. If I want to change the order of the components, you will be able to see the changes right away. While I'm making all these changes, you are not giving any impacts at all to the production environment. On the right-hand side of the screen, you are seeing the components. Also, you are able to add as many as components unlimitedly. So you do not have any restrictions to define the components when you need. When you choose one of the components, you will be able to see the field types, such as headline or image. Or if you want to have new field types, you are also able to define new. Let's say we want to change this headline to say something from Hello World to Hello Next.js Conf. You were able to see the changes as I typed. Also, if I want to replace the image, you also can do that very easily by choosing an icon of replace and choosing the asset of your choice. We made all the changes, so let's check it out when we publish the content and see how it works in these 3 systems: SSR, SSG, and ISR. As for the SSR, if we are going to reload the page, we are going to see the change on the fly, because server-side rendering will load the content at each request. As for the static site generation, no matter how many times we reload the pages, we are not going to see the updates. It is because static site generation will load content at each build time, so it will not change until I make the newer version of the build. As for the incremental static regeneration, if I reload for the first few seconds, you don't see the updated version of the page. It is because right now it's triggered to generate the updated version of the page. So if I reload the page right now, I'm able to see the updated version of the page. So while the user A is seeing the previous version of the page, it's already triggered to generate the newer version of the page. After a few seconds, the user B will be able to see already generated and updated page. At this moment, we were able to see the behaviors between SSR, SSG, and ISR. We would like to take a look at how you can integrate and configure in the source code level. So let's jump right in to the VS Code. Here in this repository, you see that I created 3 directories depending on the system that we are going to use. One is SSR, the other one is SSG, and the last one is ISR. Let's take a look at from server-side rendering. Here at the source code, we are seeing that one of the methods from Next.js. It's called getServerSideProps. In this scope, you're seeing that as a final value, we are returning the props so that we will be able to load the content at every request. Let's take a look at the static site generation. Here in the source code, we are seeing that there are 2 methods which are provided from Next.js. One is called getStaticProps. The other one is called getStaticPaths. In the scope of getStaticProps, here you see that the values which are returned at the end are very similar to what we took a look at in server-side rendering, and nothing more values are returned. As for the scope of the getStaticPaths, here at the end, we see that the value of the fallback is set as false. It means that if we create a new page in static site generation, we are going to see a 404 page until the next build, because static site generation is going to load the content at build time. Let's take a look at the incremental static regeneration. In this file, we see that the same methods from static site generations. One is called getStaticProps, and the other one is called getStaticPaths. The place where we want to pay attention more is, first of all, in the scope of getStaticProps. Here, in the end, returning the props are the same. However, we have a new value, which is called revalidate. As you set the numbers in here as the value, you're going to tell that after, in this case, 10 seconds, you are going to see the newly generated version of the page. However, within these 10 seconds, you are going to see still the previous content. In the scope of getStaticPaths, here the value of the fallback is no longer false. Instead, we are setting the value as blocking. It means that, well, for the first 10 seconds, we are going to see the 404 if we created the new page. However, after these 10 seconds, we are going to see the newly generated version of the page. And that's how you can integrate in your source code. We were able to take a look at how these 3 systems work and behave in the browser, as well as how we can integrate in your code. If you're going to deploy your project to hosting service, such as Vercel, instead of triggering your webhooks to rebuild again your project, as long as you make the change at the Headless CMS side, you are able to see the changes at the production environment. Let's try it out to make some of the change from this headline. Right now, it says Hello Next.js Conf, but I want to change this to Howdy Next.js Conf. And I'm going to publish this content. At the Vercel, we are able to take a look at the preview. Here in the preview, if I don't reload the content, of course, it's not going to change. If I reload once within these 10 seconds, the contents are still the same. However, as we deployed this project as an incremental static regeneration, if I reload after 10 seconds, it's going to show us the most updated version of the page content. And this is how incremental static regeneration works. If you want to test it out, this demo project in your environment, there is the GitHub repository available for you. You can get access from this URL. As a recap from what we heard the stories from Telmo from Education First, as well as what we have took a look at together, our demo, Education First chose to go for headless solution because, as their choice, Storyblok has the real-time visual editor, so that content editors will be able to see the changes on the fly. To integrate the frameworks of your choice, it's also very easy to do that because at Storyblok, we offer the packages available for you. So you do not have to build the package to integrate your choices of the frameworks into the Headless CMS. Also, if you want to manage the bigger scale of the multi-language project, we at the Storyblok offer the internationalization as an option, so that you will be able to choose within 2 to 3 approaches that we offer. As Telmo shared his story with us, there is an easy onboarding process. As you have seen in our demo, it's quite straightforward to take a look at it and to learn how to use it, so that you will be able to provide the tools from the day one, and your team members will be able to use it without the long hours of the workshop. If you want to test it out right now, don't wait. There's all the resources available at our Storyblok's website. Here in this URL, you will be able to see hands-on blog post tutorials, such as multi-language blog projects, also 5 minutes integration. Last but not least, I want to say a huge thank you to Next.js team as well as the Vercel team for providing such an amazing DX and the framework. Also, I want to say a huge thank you to Storyblok team. Today, I'm the one talking. However, without the efforts and the support from my team, I wouldn't be able to do that. So, a huge thank you to all of them, as well as thank you to you all for watching my talk. Not to forget, we prepared a little surprise for Next.js Conf. If you go and get access to this URL, you will be able to enjoy our team plan for free and for 3 months. Although we prepared this little surprise for you, if you are a developer who wants to explore how Storyblok works, for 1 seat, it's forever free. So don't forget to test it out. And that's all what I wanted to talk today. I hope you enjoyed my talk, and I wish you will enjoy the rest of the talk at Next.js Conf. Thanks for watching.